The poor girl arrived barefoot on her first day of work, and what she did touched the billionaire CEO's heart. Before we start the story, leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Good story to everyone. The left sandal got stuck on the escalator with a sharp snap that echoed through the station. Avery Collins tried to pull her foot free, but the metal steps were merciless. The leather strap broke in half, and she was spit out at the top of the platform like something rejected by the public transit system. 7:42 a.m., 18 minutes until the first day of her life. No, 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 she whispered, staring at the broken sandal. Priscilla, we had a deal. Yes, she named her objects. And no, this was not the time for psychological analysis. A man in a gray suit rushed by and almost knocked her over. Avery balanced on one foot, her bag sliding off her shoulder, and in a slow-motion moment worthy of a disaster documentary, the coffee she was holding jumped from its poorly closed lid, straight onto her white blouse. The brown stain spread across her chest like a map of total humiliation. Avery closed her eyes and took a deep breath. All right, universe. Message received. Two teenagers laughed loudly, phones pointed at her. A pigeon landed on the railing beside her, staring in silent judgment. She looked at the clock. 7:46. Quick decision. Limp 3 blocks, or accept total defeat? Avery tore off the other sandal and tossed both into the trash with a silent farewell. Okay, Collins, if you can't arrive with style, arrive with courage. And she started walking, barefoot, 3 blocks, in Chicago, in November. The Whitmore Enterprises building was impossible to miss, a mirrored glass tower that reflected the sky like it was saying, "You don't belong here, but you can try." Avery stopped in front of the revolving door, looking up until she felt dizzy. Executive assistant, she murmured to herself. You studied, you earned this job. The fact that you're barefoot is just a temporary detail. She pushed the door and walked in. The lobby was another world. Polished marble floors that reflected everything, crystal chandeliers, perfectly dressed people gliding around like corporate models, tablets in hand, invisible earpieces, perfectly organized lives. And her, barefoot, stained, holding a worn-out folder. 3 people stopped walking. A security guard blinked twice. The receptionist's eyes widened in a way that would have been offensive if it weren't so understandable. Avery walked to the desk, trying to project confidence, as if walking barefoot was a conscious choice and not the result of losing a war against public transportation. Good morning, she said, her voice coming out louder than planned. Avery Collins, first day, executive assistant. The receptionist looked at the screen, looked at Avery, looked back at the screen. 23rd floor, she said slowly, as if testing if this was real. Thank you. Avery crossed the lobby, leaving invisible footprints of shame on the cold marble, and stepped into the elevator. She pressed the button for the 23rd floor. The doors started to close. Hold it, please. The voice was deep. Male. The kind that makes you obey before you even think. Avery slipped her hand between the doors. They opened, and Logan Whitmore walked in. Charcoal gray tailored suit, dark hair perfectly combed, upright posture that radiated total control. Expensive cologne that probably cost more than her rent. He stepped inside, turned, and stood next to her. The elevator suddenly felt smaller. Avery pressed herself against the side wall, trying to take up as little space as possible. Logan pressed the button for the 23rd floor. It was already lit. He looked at the panel, then at her, and then his gaze dropped. Stained blouse, pants with splashes, bare feet on the mirrored elevator floor. Avery felt her face catch fire. Public transportation issues, she said quickly, her voice a bit too high. The escalator ate my sandals, literally. Then the coffee rebelled. It's been a morning. Why was she explaining this? Why couldn't she just stay quiet like a normal person? Logan didn't answer right away. He just kept looking, slowly, as if cataloging every detail of this impossible scene. Then the corner of his mouth curved, barely. Chicago can be cruel to those who come unprepared, he said, his deep voice echoing softly in the small space. It wasn't criticism. It wasn't a joke. It was somewhere in between, something that made her stomach twist. I was prepared, Avery defended herself, adjusting the folder in her arms. The universe just didn't cooperate. He tilted his head slightly, his eyes still fixed on her. And yet you came. It wasn't a question. It was an observation, approval, hidden beneath the words. "First day," she replied, trying to sound confident. "Couldn't miss it because of treacherous footwear." The elevator was moving slowly, very slowly. Avery counted the floors on the digital panel. 8, 9, 10. The silence was deafening. She could feel his gaze, sideways, subtle, assessing. "Executive assistant?" he suddenly asked. Avery blinked, surprised that he had guessed. "How did you—" 23rd floor, he said simply. "There are only 3 departments there: HR, finance, and the executive office." "Oh, yes, executive assistant," she confirmed, her heart racing for no apparent reason. "Do you work there too?" Logan turned his head fully now, looking straight at her. His eyes were dark gray, intense, the kind of look that seemed to read more than it should. "Something like that," he answered, and there was a hint of something there. Amusement? Curiosity? 15, 16, 17. Avery pressed the folder against her chest like an improvised shield. "Is the first day always like this?" she asked, just to break the silence that was becoming unbearable. "Like, does everyone show up barefoot and stained, or am I starting a new tradition?" This time, he smiled. Not a big smile. Small, contained, almost reluctant, but it was there. "You're the first," he said, "in 20 years of the company." "Great," Avery murmured. "I love making history." 20, 21, 22. Logan kept looking at her, long enough to not be casual, short enough to not be uncomfortable. And Avery, for the first time since her sandal had died on the escalator, felt something other than embarrassment. She felt curiosity, nervousness, something that made the air in the elevator feel thicker. 23. Ding. The doors opened. Logan gestured with his hand, polite. "After you." Avery stepped out quickly, her heart beating unevenly. She turned to thank him, but he was already stepping out too, heading down the same hallway. She stopped. He stopped. They looked at each other. "You work here?" Avery asked slowly. "Yes," Logan replied, his eyes shining with something dangerously close to amusement. She swallowed hard. "Which office?" He pointed with his chin toward the glass door at the end of the hall. "The one with the large golden plaque. Logan Whitmore, CEO." Avery's world stopped. "You're the CEO?" Logan tilted his head. "Logan Whitmore. Pleasure to officially meet you, Miss Collins," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Avery Collins." He extended his hand. Avery looked at his hand, then at her own still stained with coffee, then back at him. She shook it anyway. His palm was warm, firm. The handshake lasted 2 seconds longer than professionally necessary. "Welcome to Whitmore Enterprises, Miss Collins," he said, his deep voice carrying something she couldn't quite name. Then he released her hand, turned, and walked toward his office door. He stopped, looked back. "Miss Patterson," he called, and an elegant woman with silver glasses appeared instantly, as if from thin air. "Yes, Mr. Whitmore?" He gestured slightly toward Avery. "Take Miss Collins to the executive dressing room. Arrange proper clothes, shoes as well." It wasn't a request, it was an order. But gentle. Almost. Kind? "Right away, sir?" Logan looked at Avery once more, long, assessing, as if memorizing the scene to revisit it later. "I hope the rest of your day is less dramatic, Miss Collins." And he entered his office, closing the glass door behind him. Avery followed Miss Patterson down the hall in silence, her mind still processing the fact that the man in the elevator, the man who had smiled at her, the man who had held her hand 2 seconds longer, was her boss. The billionaire CEO, Logan Whitmore. "Here," Miss Patterson said, opening a discreet door at the end of the corridor. The executive dressing room looked like a 5-star hotel suite. Huge mirrors with perfect lighting, mahogany lockers, cream leather sofas, even decorative plants placed with strategic precision. Miss Patterson opened a large wardrobe filled with clothes still carrying their tags. "Sizes?" she asked, already pulling out hangers with military efficiency. "Medium blouse, size 8 pants, size 7 shoes." Avery answered automatically, still in shock. The woman set aside 2 spotless white blouses, a perfectly cut black dress pant, and 2 pairs of genuine leather shoes that shone like promises of dignity. "5 minutes," she said, handing her the clothes. "Your desk is in front of Mr. Whitmore's office. Once you're ready, sit there and wait for instructions." And she left, closing the door. Avery was alone with clothes that cost more than 3 months of rent. She looked at herself in the mirror. Hair half undone, stained blouse, splashed pants, bare feet. "Okay, Avery," she told her reflection. You just found out you accidentally flirted with your boss in the elevator, your billionaire boss, who saw you barefoot and stained and talking about treacherous sandals. She took a deep breath. You can do two things now. Panic or move on. Choose the second one. Always choose the second. She changed quickly. The blouse was made of fine fabric that slid softly against her skin. The pants fit perfectly. The shoes were comfortable in that expensive way only high-end shoes could be. She washed her face, redid her bun, and applied nude lipstick she kept in her bag for emergencies. She looked at herself in the mirror again. There, she told her reflection. Now you look like someone who belongs here. Executive assistant. Professional. Capable. Someone who definitely doesn't name her sandals. She left the dressing room. The 23rd floor was silent. Charcoal gray carpet absorbing sound, frosted glass walls giving elegant privacy, soft lighting making everything look like a scene from a corporate movie. Avery found her desk easily. There, on the wide workstation with two gleaming monitors, was a small gold nameplate. Avery Collins, executive assistant. Her chest tightened, a mix of pride and nerves. She sat in the ergonomic chair, ran her fingers across the new keyboard, and looked toward the glass office door in front of her. Logan was inside. She could see his silhouette through the frosted glass, sitting at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, posture straight even while seated. Avery turned on the computer, typing the temporary password written in a sealed envelope on her desk. The screen came to life with the Whitmore Enterprises logo. She took a deep breath. You can do this. First day, be professional. Don't think about the elevator. Don't think about his smile. Don't think about how warm his hand was when the office door opened. Logan walked out. He stopped, looked at her. And this time it was different. His eyes moved slowly, over her flawless blouse, her more confident posture, her neat hair, her new shoes. Slowly. Deliberately. Avery felt her face grow warm. Logan tilted his head slightly, almost imperceptibly, like silent approval. The corner of his mouth curved again, that almost smile from the elevator. Better, he said simply, his deep voice echoing in the quiet space. It wasn't an elaborate compliment, just one word. But it carried something that made her heart race. Their eyes met. For 3 seconds the office disappeared. Then Logan looked away, adjusted his shirt cuff casually, and went back inside his office. The glass door closed. Avery let out the breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The intercom on her desk buzzed. Logan's deep voice came through. Miss Collins, coffee please, no sugar, and bring the weekly schedule. Digital file folder November. Professional, direct. As if the last 20 minutes had never happened. Avery stared at the intercom. Yes, sir, she replied, trying to sound just as professional. She stood, her legs slightly shaky, found the break room next door. The Italian coffee machine looked more complicated than an airplane control panel. 3 tries before she got it to work. She served the coffee. No sugar. Returned to her desk, opened the digital November folder on her computer, printed the weekly schedule. Took 3 deep breaths. Knocked on the glass door. Come in, Logan said without looking up, eyes still on his computer screen. Avery pushed the door open. The office was exactly how she imagined a billionaire CEO's office would be. Glass and steel desk, books arranged by color, panoramic view of Chicago through massive windows, and a silence that felt expensive. She approached the desk, placed the coffee beside the mouse, handed him the printed schedule. Logan stopped typing. He took the paper. His fingers brushed hers for half a second, but it was enough for Avery to feel electricity run up her arm. He looked at the schedule, then at her. Thank you, Miss Collins. The second day started differently. Avery woke up at 5:30, ironed her blouse 3 times, checked the subway twice before getting off at the station. Tested her new sandals walking across the platform before stepping onto the escalator, this time with the caution of a beginner in a minefield. She arrived at Whitmore Enterprises at 7:45. 15 minutes early. No stains, no disasters, fully shod. Victory. She went straight to the 10th floor before heading to her desk. Knocked on the executive dressing room door. Miss Patterson opened it, her silver glasses catching the hallway light. Miss Collins. Good morning. Good morning, Avery said, handing her the neatly folded bag. I came to return the clothes. I washed and ironed everything. And, thank you. Really, you saved me yesterday. Miss Patterson took the bag, her eyes softening just slightly. Mr. Whitmore asked me to, but you're welcome. He. Does that often? For other employees? The woman tilted her head, a faint smile on her lips. No, dear. You were the first. And she closed the door before Avery could even process that. 23rd floor. 7:52 a.m. Avery organized her desk, turned on the computer, checked Logan's schedule for the day. Meeting at 9, conference call at 11, lunch with investors at 1. She took a deep breath. Okay, Collins. Today you're professional, competent, no disasters, no spilled coffee, no tripping, just basic corporate normalcy. The door to Logan's office opened. He walked out, dark gray suit today, navy blue tie, the same composed posture as always. He stopped when he saw her. His eyes moved down quickly, checking, she realized, if everything was normal. Impeccable white blouse, black pants with no stains, new sandals on her feet. The corner of his mouth curved slightly, almost imperceptibly. Good morning, Miss Collins. Good morning, sir. No incidents on the subway today? There was something in his tone. Amusement? A soft tease? None, sir. I arrived in one piece. Good, he said, adjusting his shirt cuff. 9 o'clock meeting. Conference room B. 6 coffees. 3 without sugar, 2 with sugar, 1 with skim milk. Got it. Logan nodded and headed for the elevator. But before stepping in, he looked back. For 2 seconds. Then the doors closed. Avery let out the breath she'd been holding. He looked back. He definitely looked back. Does that mean what? Nothing. It means nothing. He probably just wanted to make sure you wouldn't fall off your chair. 8:55 a.m. Avery prepared 6 coffees with surgical precision, set them on the tray, walked carefully down the hall. She remembered Logan's warning about the ripple in the carpet, stepped over it with exaggerated care, like a space mission. Reached the conference room without spilling a single drop. Double victory. She pushed the door open with her shoulder. 5 executives were already seated. Logan stood at the head of the table, adjusting something on the projector screen. Good morning, Avery said as she entered with the tray. Coffee for everyone. She started distributing, 3 without sugar to the seats on the left, 2 with sugar on the right. She took the last cup, the one with skim milk, and walked toward the man in the navy blue suit at the end of the table. He was flipping through papers and didn't look up. Avery set the cup in front of him. His elbow moved, hit the cup. The coffee spilled, right onto the papers. The man jumped up. For heaven's sake, I'm so sorry, Avery said quickly, grabbing napkins from the tray and trying to dry it up. I put it far enough, but it's all soaked, the man said, staring at the drenched documents. These are the meeting contracts. The silence in the room turned heavy. Avery felt her face burn. I'll print new ones. Right now. 2 minutes. No need, Logan said, his calm voice cutting through the tension. We have everything in digital format for the presentation. He pointed at the projection screen. And Richard, Logan continued, looking at the man in the suit, you knocked the coffee over with your elbow. It wasn't Miss Collins. Richard opened his mouth, closed it, looked down at the wet papers like they were evidence of a crime. Maybe, he admitted, embarrassed. Let's begin, Logan said simply, returning to the head of the table. Avery took the chance, grabbed the tray, and left the room before the floor could open up and swallow her whole. Back at her desk, she buried her face in her hands. Okay, episode 3 of the documentary Avery Collins, Corporate Disasters. Today, spilled coffee on an important executive. Tomorrow, accidental fire in the break room. The day after, termination. Talking to yourself already? Avery lifted her head so fast she almost gave herself whiplash. A woman stood beside her desk. Around 30, blonde hair pulled into a flawless bun, beige tailored suit, high heels that probably cost more than Avery's rent, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Hi, Avery said, trying to sound normal. Can I help you? Camille Hart, the woman said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. Director of Corporate Relations. I just wanted to meet the new assistant. There was something in the way she said new assistant, like she meant latest hire before the inevitable firing. Avery shook her hand. Avery Collins, nice to meet you. The pleasure's mine, Camille said, her eyes dropping to Avery's sandals. I heard about your first day. Must have been awkward. It was memorable, Avery replied, trying to keep her smile steady. I'm sure, Camille said, tilting her head with fake sympathy. Anyway, just wanted to say welcome. Logan is very demanding, but I'm sure you'll adjust, or not. And she left, her heels clicking on the carpet like punctuation marks to a threat. Avery stared at the empty hallway. Okay, that woman definitely hates me, and I haven't even done anything yet. Great start to corporate friendships, Collins. The intercom buzzed. Miss Collins? Logan's deep voice. Avery pressed the button. Yes, sir? My office, please. Her heart dropped. On my way. She stood up on shaky legs, straightened her blouse, took 3 deep breaths, knocked on the glass door. Come in. Logan was sitting behind his desk, eyes fixed on his computer screen. Avery stepped inside, closing the door behind her. About the coffee, she began quickly. I know it was a disaster, but I swear I placed it far from his elbow and… Richard is clumsy, Logan interrupted, still looking at the screen. Always has been. It wasn't your fault. Avery blinked. But… And even if it was, Logan continued, finally looking at her, accidents happen. It's your second day. You'll learn. His voice was calm, patient, not the slightest hint of irritation. Avery didn't know what to say. Logan leaned back in his chair, fingers interlaced on the desk. You returned the clothes to Miss Patterson? Yes, sir, this morning. He nodded slowly. You didn't have to. They were for you to keep. I can't accept that, Avery said, uneasy. They were too expensive and… Miss Collins, Logan said, his tone different now, softer. You did what needed to be done on your first day. You didn't give up. That's worth more than clothes. His eyes met hers. For 3 seconds, 4. Avery felt her face grow warm. Thank you, sir. Logan nodded, turning his gaze back to the screen. That's all. You may go back to work. Avery turned to leave. And Miss Collins? She stopped. Looked back. Logan was looking at her again. Ignore what others say. You're doing well. It wasn't an exaggerated compliment. It was simple, direct. But the way he said it, Avery nodded, not trusting her own voice, and left before she ran out of air. Back at her desk, she sank into her chair, heart still racing. She looked toward the glass office door. Logan was back at his computer, typing with almost irritating precision. But then he paused, looked toward the door, and met her eyes through the glass. He didn't look away, he just held her gaze. For 2 seconds. Then turned back to his screen, the corner of his mouth curving into what might have been a smile. Avery took a deep breath. He's paying attention, she whispered to herself. Definitely paying attention. And for the first time since the coffee disaster, she smiled. The first week had been steady. Avery arrived on time, no disasters, managed to serve coffee without spilling, organized 3 meetings without mixing up schedules. Logan even said she was adjusting well. But on Friday at 3:47 p.m. the universe decided to collect its debt. The email arrived with the subject line in all caps, Error in Quarterly Report. Avery felt her stomach drop. She clicked it, read it, read it again, and realized with growing horror that she had switched the 3rd quarter revenue numbers with the 4th quarter projections. The report she had sent to 12 directors showed the company losing $2 million when it had actually made $4 million. She had made Whitmore Enterprises look financially incompetent. To 12 people, including the CEO, her boss, Logan. No, she whispered, hands trembling over the keyboard. Collins, you had 1 good week and managed to ruin everything. Congratulations, the incompetence trophy is already on its way. The intercom buzzed. Logan's deep voice echoed like a court sentence. Miss Collins, my office, now. Avery closed her eyes. Okay, it's over. 6-day career, personal record for failure. She stood on trembling legs, straightened her blouse, took 5 deep breaths. The free meditation video technique was still useless. She walked toward the glass door like someone walking to her own execution, stopped, looked at her reflection. All right, Avery. Options: A. Cry. B. Beg for forgiveness. C. Resign with dignity. D. Pretend temporary amnesia. E. Flee to Canada. She shook her head. Option C, definitely C. Be an adult. Accept the consequences. Don't cry. Do not cry. She knocked on the door. Come in. She pushed the door open. Logan was standing by the panoramic window, looking out over Chicago. Hands in his pockets. Tense posture. Jaw clenched. Avery stepped in and closed the door behind her. The silence lasted 5 seconds that felt like 5 years. Mr. Whitmore, she began, her voice shaking. About the report? I know I made a catastrophic, unforgivable mistake, probably punishable by some corporate court. So if you want to fire me now, I completely understand, and I'll leave quietly and never set foot in this building again and… Sit down, Miss Collins. It wasn't a harsh order. It was calm. Avery blinked, confused, but obeyed. She sat in the leather chair in front of the desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap like a child sent to the principal's office. Logan turned, picked up the printed report from his desk, and sat on the edge of it. Right in front of her. Close. Too close to be purely professional. His legs were almost touching her knees. "Do you know where you went wrong?" he asked, opening the document. "I switched the numbers." Avery answered miserably, staring at her hands. "Third and fourth quarters. I made the company look broke when it's actually profitable. I ruined everything. I'm so sorry." "Look at me." His voice was gentle but firm. Avery lifted her eyes. Logan was looking directly at her. No irritation, no coldness. "Just focus." "Line 10, he said, pointing to the paper. "Here, you entered $2.3 million in revenue when it should have been $4.3. Why?" "I looked at the wrong column on the spreadsheet." No, Avery admitted, her voice shaking. "I copied the projected data instead of the actuals. It was a stupid mistake and—" "It was a common mistake," Logan interrupted. "The spreadsheet's poorly formatted. I already asked to have it redesigned. 3 previous assistants made the same error." Avery blinked. Three, he repeated, closing the report. "The difference is, you caught it yourself in 40 minutes. The others took days." "But I sent it to 12 people," she whispered. "I made the company look incompetent." "You sent it to 11, Logan corrected, the corner of his mouth almost curving. "I intercepted the board's copy before it went out. No one besides the directors saw it, and they know preliminary numbers have a margin of error." Avery's world stopped. "You intercepted it?" Logan tilted his head slightly. "Part of my job is filtering information before it causes real damage. You made a mistake. You recognized it quickly. That's worth more than fake perfection." He stood, walked around the desk, and pulled his chair closer. Sat down, opened his laptop. "Come here." It wasn't an invitation, it was an instruction. Avery stood on unsteady legs and walked around the desk. Logan turned the laptop toward her. "Look. Original spreadsheet, see the columns? Projected and actual are side by side, same color, same font, design flaw." He pointed to the screen, his arm brushing against hers. Avery tried to focus on the numbers, but all she could process was how close he was. The warmth, the scent, the deep, patient voice explaining something she didn't feel she deserved. "From now on," Logan continued, "always double-check push before transferring data. Verify twice. Always." "Yes, sir," she murmured. He looked at her. "Up close. Too close." "Everyone makes mistakes at the beginning, Miss Collins. You'll learn." It wasn't a generic motivational line. It felt personal, like he truly believed it. Avery swallowed hard. "Thank you, sir, for not firing me, and for intercepting the email, and for being patient when I definitely don't deserve patience." Logan stayed silent for 2 seconds, then did something unexpected. He smiled. Small, restrained, but genuine. "You deserve more than you think." His voice was low, almost intimate. The air between them grew heavy. Avery felt her face warm, her heart race, her breath catch. She started, not knowing what to say. The desk phone rang, shattering the moment like glass. Logan blinked, as if snapping out of a trance. He answered. "Whitmore?" he said, his voice returning to its professional tone. "Yes, transfer it. 1 minute." He covered the receiver and looked at Avery. "You can go back to work, and Miss Collins?" "Yes? Good work this week, really." Avery nodded, not trusting her voice. She left the office before her legs completely gave out. Back at her desk, she sank into her chair, her heart still pounding. "He didn't fire me," she whispered to herself. "He taught me. He smiled. He said I deserve more than I think. What does that even mean?" She looked toward the glass door. Logan was on the phone, but his eyes found hers through the glass. For 3 seconds. Then he looked away, returning to the call. But the corner of his mouth was still curved. Avery took a deep breath, smiling without meaning to, and realized that Logan Whitmore was far more dangerous than any wrong report could ever be. Because he didn't scare her. He unsettled her. Completely. 6:15 p.m. on Monday. The 23rd floor was almost empty. Avery shut down her computer, put away the pen she had nervously chewed for the past hour, and glanced at the glass door to Logan's office. The light was still on. He was still there, probably working late as always. She grabbed her bag, straightened her blouse, and walked toward the elevators. The hallway was silent. Most employees had left by 5:30. Only a few emergency lights illuminated the path. She pressed the elevator button. The doors opened immediately. She stepped in and pressed the lobby button. The doors began to close. "Hold the door, please." That voice. Avery slipped her hand between the doors. They opened. Logan stepped in, jacket folded over his arm, tie slightly loosened. He looked tired. More human. Less like the flawless CEO. "Working late?" he asked, pressing the lobby button. It was already lit. "Finishing a few reports," Avery replied. "And you?" "Meeting with East Coast investors, time zones." The doors closed. The elevator started descending. 17, 16, 15. A comfortable, tired silence. 13, 12. The elevator jolted sharply, making Avery grab the side rail. The lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. Then went completely out. Total darkness for 3 seconds. Then the emergency lighting came on, dim, yellowish, casting strange shadows. "What?" Avery began. Logan was already at the panel, pressing buttons. Nothing. He picked up the emergency phone. He dialed. Waited. "Whitmore here. Elevator 3, stuck between 12 and 11. A long pause. "I see. How long?" Another pause. 45 minutes? The doors won't open?" Silence. "Understood. Thank you." He hung up slowly, turned to Avery. "Power failure in the system. The backup's running, but the elevators stay locked until the technicians reset them manually. 45 minutes, and they can't force the doors open remotely." Avery felt her breath catch. "So we're stuck. Like, actually stuck? We can't get out?" "Yes." "For 45 minutes?" "Yes." "In the dark?" "Emergency lighting," Logan corrected, gesturing at the dim bulbs. "But yes, basically in the dark." Avery leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath. "Okay, this is fine. Just 45 minutes stuck in a horror movie-lit elevator with my boss after hours in an empty building. Normal. Totally normal." "You're talking to yourself again," Logan said, his tone almost affectionate. "It's a survival mechanism. Let me process the panic before it processes me." Logan took off his jacket completely, folded it, and set it on the floor, loosened his tie a bit, ran a hand through his hair, then sat on the floor, leaning against the side wall. He looked at her. "Sit. It'll be more comfortable." Avery hesitated, then obeyed. She slid down the opposite wall, legs crossed, bag in her lap. The weak emergency light cast half his face in shadow. It looked like a scene from an old noir film. They sat in silence. 10 seconds. 20. "I really hate silence," Avery said suddenly. "My brain starts inventing catastrophic scenarios like, what if the oxygen runs out, even though I logically know elevators have ventilation, but still." "Avery." He used her first name again. She stopped talking. "Breathe," Logan said softly. "There's no danger, just inconvenience." "Inconvenience," she repeated with a nervous laugh. "You call being trapped in the dark an inconvenience? I call that a horror movie scenario. Would you prefer I panic too?" "No, I'd prefer you keep being you, calm, controlled, annoyingly composed." The corner of his mouth curved slightly. "Annoyingly? It's a rare talent." Silence again, but this time lighter. "Can I ask you something?" Avery said, adjusting the bag in her lap. "You can. Do you always work late?" Logan tilted his head, thinking. "Most days. It's quieter, easier to think. Or easier to avoid going home." His eyes met hers in the dim light. Perceptive. "I stay late sometimes too," Avery admitted. "Not because there's work, just because an empty apartment is empty." "I understand that," Logan said quietly. The elevator suddenly shook. Hard. Avery screamed, her hands flying forward instinctively. Logan crossed the small space in 2 quick movements, kneeling in front of her and gripping her shoulders firmly. "It's okay, just cable adjustment. It's normal," he said, voice calm but close. Too close. "Normal?" she repeated, her voice trembling. "That's normal?" "Completely." But he didn't let go of her shoulders, and she didn't ask him to. They stayed like that, in the dim light, his eyes locked on hers. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "I think so." "Are you sure?" "No." He almost smiled. His hands were still on her shoulders, his face inches from hers, his breath warm against her forehead. "Avery," he said, and the way he said her name was different. Intimate. Dangerous. "Logan," she replied without thinking, testing his name for the first time. Something changed in his eyes. "You've never called me by my name before," he said. "You're my boss. It would be inappropriate. And now?" "Now we're stuck in the dark. Normal rules don't apply." He laughed, low, genuine. "I like your logic." His eyes dropped to her mouth. For 2 seconds, 3. Avery stopped breathing. Was he going to? The intercom crackled, shattering the moment like glass. "Mr. Whitmore, can you hear me?" Logan closed his eyes for a second, as if regaining control. Then he stepped back, releasing her shoulders. He walked to the panel. Yes, I hear you. We've fixed it. Elevator will be running in 30 seconds. Understood. He hung up, stood with his back turned for 2 seconds, then turned around. He held out his hand to Avery. She took it. He pulled her up. They stood there, hand in hand, longer than necessary. The elevator started moving again with a soft jolt. The regular lights came on, too bright after the dimness. Logan picked up his jacket, straightened his tie. He was the CEO again. But when the doors opened on the ground floor, he looked at her before stepping out. Good night, Avery. It wasn't Miss Collins. It was Avery. He walked out, crossing the empty lobby. Avery stood there, trying to process. 45 minutes in the dark. He had crossed the elevator to hold her. He had looked at her mouth. He had said her name. He had almost... She stepped up out of the elevator, stumbling slightly over her own feet. And when she looked toward the revolving door, Logan was outside, standing still, looking back at her, with something in his eyes that made her heart stop completely. Tuesday, 9:20 a.m. Avery was still replaying Monday night in the elevator, especially the part where Logan had held her shoulders in the dark and looked at her mouth, when she saw Camille Hart walking onto the 23rd floor. The sharp click of high heels on carpet announced her arrival. Pearl gray suit today, even more expensive than last week's beige one. Blonde hair and gravity-defying waves, a smile that still didn't reach her eyes. She passed Avery's desk, stopped, looked down, as if studying an interesting insect. Avery, she said, her tone overly polite. Still here. How persistent. Good morning, Camille, Avery replied, forcing professionalism. I'm here to see Logan, Camille continued, adjusting her perfect hair. Important matters. Board level, you understand. No. Avery definitely didn't understand, but she wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of asking. Camille knocked on the glass door to Logan's office. Come in, came his deep voice. She stepped inside, closed the door, and sat down, crossing her legs with practiced elegance. Avery tried not to look through the frosted glass. Failed miserably. She could see their silhouettes. Camille laughing at something. Logan behind his desk, upright posture, expression unreadable even through the glass. None of your business, Avery muttered to herself, turning back to her computer. He's your boss. She's been his colleague for 5 years. You've been his assistant for 2 weeks. Clear hierarchy. No drama. 15 minutes later, Camille came out. She passed Avery's desk and smiled. He's in a great mood today, she said, as if sharing a secret. He always is after we talk. Anyway, good work, dear. Keep trying. And she left, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume and superiority. Avery waited until she disappeared down the hall, then mimicked her in an absurdly high-pitched voice. Oh, Logan's always in a great mood when I'm around because we're basically corporate soulmates, and you're just the assistant who will last until Christmas, if you're lucky. Impressions during work hours, Miss Collins? Avery nearly choked on her own breath. Logan was standing in the doorway of his office, folder in hand, the corner of his mouth betraying a trace of amusement. I didn't, Avery stammered, her face burning. I'm sorry, that was extremely immature and unprofessional, and I need, Logan interrupted, stepping in and placing the folder on her desk, you to organize these documents for tomorrow's board meeting. 3 contracts, confidential, extremely important. Avery blinked, staring at the folder as if it were a bomb. Me? But wouldn't that be something for someone more experienced? Like a director? I'm asking you. But Camille just left, and she's been here 5 years and... I'm asking you, Miss Collins, Logan repeated, and there was unmistakable firmness in his tone now. Do you trust you can handle it? His eyes held hers. Avery swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Files are on the shared server. Passwords in your email. Print, organize, and bind them by 5 p.m., no exceptions. Understood. Logan nodded, turned toward his office, then stopped. Looked back. And Miss Collins? Yes? Your impression was excellent, especially the part about corporate soulmates. And he stepped into his office, closing the door before she could respond. Avery stared at the folder, processing. He had heard everything and complimented her and given her confidential work instead of Camille. She opened the folder. 3 massive contracts, complex clauses, numbers that made her bank account look like a joke. Okay, Collins, don't mess this up. Just print, organize, and don't spill coffee on anything. 2 hours later, the phone rang. Executive Assistants Avery Collins. Avery, dear. Camille's voice came through sweet as poison. It's me. Logan asked me to review the board contracts before they go to print. Can you send me the files? Avery frowned, looking at the folder. He didn't mention a review, he just asked me to organize them. Oh, sweetheart. Camille laughed, condescending. He must have forgotten to tell you. I always review important documents. It's standard protocol. Can you email them to me? Something felt off. I'll confirm with Mr. Fring Whitmore first, Avery said politely. A cold silence followed. Confirm? Camille repeated, her tone losing all sweetness. Are you questioning my word? I'm following confidentiality protocol, Avery replied, keeping her voice steady. Documents only leave with direct authorization from the CEO. You're making a mistake, Camille said quietly. Then I'll make it by confirming first. And Avery hung up before she lost her nerve. She waited for Logan to finish his conference call. 10 minutes that felt like 10 hours. The intercom buzzed. Miss Collins, in here, please. Avery walked into his office, her heart in her throat. Camille called, Logan said without looking up from his screen. Said you refused to send her the contracts for review. Avery's stomach dropped. I didn't refuse. She said it was protocol, but you hadn't mentioned any review, so I thought it best to confirm before sending confidential documents to. You did exactly the right thing, Logan interrupted, finally looking at her. There is no review protocol. Contracts go directly from my office to the board. Camille tried to access information that doesn't concern her. Avery blinked. So, I didn't mess up? You did what you should. Protect confidential information, Logan said, leaning back in his chair. That shows judgment and loyalty. The word loyalty echoed differently. Camille won't like that, Avery murmured. Camille doesn't need to like it. Logan replied, his gaze firm. You work for me. You answer to me, no one else. The way he said for me did something strange to her stomach. Understood, sir. Anything else? No, sir. Then go back to work? And Avery? She stopped at the door, turning around. Don't let anyone make you doubt yourself when you're right. Especially people who should know better. It wasn't a generic boss comment. It was personal, protective. Avery nodded and left before her face could give her away. Back at her desk, she kept organizing the contracts. 20 minutes later, Camille walked down the hall. She didn't look at Avery, but her heels hit the carpet harder. Avery took a deep breath, smiling despite herself, and realized she'd just stepped into a war she hadn't even known she wanted to fight. But when she looked toward the glass door and saw Logan watching her, for 2 seconds before looking away, something almost like pride in his eyes, she realized something important. Maybe she wasn't fighting alone. The email arrived at 10:13 a.m. on Thursday, 2 days after Avery had blocked Camille's attempt to access the confidential contracts. Subject line, FYI, hiring criteria. No visible sender. Sent to 23 people in the executive department. Avery clicked it and felt her world collapse. Interesting how certain positions are being filled lately. Maybe competence isn't the main criterion anymore. Maybe looks and proximity to the leadership matter more. Just an observation. She read it 3 times, her stomach twisting tighter with every word. Proximity to the leadership. Looks. They were implying that she had been hired because... What? Because Logan was interested in her? No, she whispered, her hands trembling over the keyboard. No. I went through the interview process. I earned this. The phone on her desk rang. She answered automatically. Executive assistants. Did you see the email? Jessica from HR sounded tense. I did. Avery, I just wanted to say no one here is taking it seriously. It's clearly someone with... Thank you, Jessica. Avery interrupted, her voice breaking slightly. I have to go. She hung up before she could fall apart. She opened a blank document. Typed to whoever sent the anonymous email, because you clearly have the courage of a snake, but not enough to sign your own name. I was hired because I passed 4 rounds of interviews, graduated with honors in business administration, and have 3 years of experience. But sure, it's easier to invent ridiculous theories than to accept that maybe, just maybe, I'm actually competent. Sincerely, the assistant you'll never be. She stared at the text, took a deep breath, deleted it all, typed again. Dear anonymous coward, have you considered therapy? Because you clearly have issues with women who earn their jobs. Maybe envy, insecurity, a desperate need for validation? Get help. With love, not really, Avery. Deleted it again. Tried a third time. Hey, pathetic anonymous sender, how about using that energy to do your own job instead of making up gossip about mine? Just a suggestion. P.S. Learn to write properly. Proximidade has an accent mark. She almost laughed. Almost. Then she deleted everything and closed the document. It won't help, she murmured to herself. Responding will just prove it got to me. Ignore it. Be professional. Don't let them see it hurt. But it had hurt. Deeply. The door to Logan's office opened. He stepped out, stopped, and looked at her. Miss Collins, are you all right? Yes, sir, she lied, forcing a smile. Logan tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing. Are you sure? Absolutely. He didn't look convinced but nodded and headed toward the conference room. Avery turned back to her computer, trying to focus on work. But all she could see was that awful phrase. Appearance and proximity to leadership. 3 hours later, at 2 p.m, the intercom across the entire 23rd floor crackled. Logan's deep, steady voice echoed through the speakers. General meeting. Main conference room. Now. All executive staff. Not optional. Avery stood, confused. General meetings weren't common, and his tone was different. She entered the conference room. 15 people were already seated. Camille sat at one end, her expression too neutral. Logan walked in last. Closed the door. He didn't sit. He stood. I'll be brief, he said, his voice controlled, but carrying something sharp beneath it. Today, an anonymous email was circulated, defamatory, cowardly. The silence in the room grew heavy. I investigated the source, Logan continued. We traced the IP. It came from a computer in the corporate relations department. Avery saw Camille's face lose color. I won't name names, Logan said, his eyes sweeping the room. But let me make something very clear. This company has a zero-tolerance policy for harassment, defamation, or any behavior that undermines the integrity of our employees. He paused. Intentionally. Everyone here was hired on merit, on competence, on qualification. If anyone has a problem with that, I suggest you review your own standards or find employment elsewhere. His tone stayed calm, but there was steel in it. If there's another attempt to attack any employee of this company, there will be consequences, legal and immediate. Is that clear? No one answered. I asked if that's clear, Logan repeated, firmer now. Yes, sir, voices murmured in unison. Good. Meeting adjourned. People started filing out. Avery stood there, stunned. Logan had traced it, investigated it, called a public meeting. For her. Camille walked past Avery on her way out, didn't look at her. But her jaw was tight. Avery was the last to leave. Logan was gathering his papers. Mr. Whitmore, she said softly. He looked up. Thank you, she continued. For doing that, you didn't have to. Logan placed the papers in his folder and walked toward her until he stood right in front of her. Yes, I did, he said, his voice gentler now. No one attacks my team, especially with lies. But your reputation could. My reputation will survive, he interrupted. Yours shouldn't have to survive cowardly attacks. His eyes held hers. You were hired because you passed a rigorous selection process, because you're qualified, because you've proven yourself capable. Anyone suggesting otherwise is lying, and liars don't last long here. It wasn't a corporate speech. It was personal, protective, almost intimate. Thank you, Avery whispered. Logan nodded, picking up his folder. But before leaving, he stopped at the door. And Avery? Yes? If it happens again, you tell me. Immediately. It wasn't a request, it was an order, but a kind one. He left. Avery stayed in the room, heart pounding. She went back to her desk, opened the email, typed one last reply she would never send. Dear anonymous sender, you lost, and you don't even know it yet. Sincerely, the assistant who has the CEO on her side. She deleted it, smiled, and when she looked toward the glass door of his office, Logan was there, looking at her, with something in his eyes that made everything, the email, the meeting, the public defense, suddenly make dangerous, undeniable sense. He wasn't just defending an employee, he was defending her, and they both knew it. Friday, 7:40 p.m. The 23rd floor was empty except for 2 people. Avery, surrounded by stacks of printed proposals, and Logan in his office with the door open for the first time in hours. Final review, he said, appearing in the doorway with one more document. Then you can go. You should go too, Avery replied, taking the paper. You've been here since 6 this morning. Monday's meeting needs to be perfect. It will be. Logan looked at her for 3 seconds, almost smiled. When did you get so confident? since my boss stopped letting me doubt myself. The mention of Wednesday's meeting lingered in the air. He had defended her publicly. Neither of them had brought it up since. Logan looked away first. Finish that. I'll grab my things. 20 minutes later, Avery shut down her computer, picked up her bag, and found Logan waiting in the hallway. Ready? He asked. Ready. They stepped into the elevator together, a comfortable, tired silence. The doors opened on the ground floor, and they heard it before they saw it. Rain, not polite Chicago drizzle, but a full-blown storm. You've got to be kidding, Avery muttered, staring through the glass doors. The street looked like a river. The forecast didn't mention this, Logan said, checking his phone. Chicago weather forecasts are suggestions, not science. He almost laughed. Got an umbrella? I do, Avery said, rummaging through her bag. One of those mini ones you buy for $3 that breaks with the first gust of wind. You? Logan walked to the reception desk, said a few words to the night guard, and came back with a large, sturdy black umbrella that probably cost more than her rent. Of course the company has CEO umbrellas, Avery said, laughing. Let me guess, lifetime warranty? 2 years, he replied, amusement clear in his tone. Shall we? Shall we what? Share. Your umbrella won't last 30 seconds. This one will. Avery looked at him, then at the rain, then back at him. You're offering to share an umbrella with me? I'm offering to keep you from drowning on your way to the subway. How chivalrous. I'm a CEO. I have to protect my employees. Employees, right? There was something in the way she said it. Logan looked at her, for a moment too long. Let's go before it gets worse. They stepped outside together. Logan opened the umbrella. Avery tucked herself under it, and immediately realized the problem. For both of them to fit, they had to stand ridiculously close, shoulder to shoulder, his arm brushing hers, his body heat cutting through the damp fabric of his suit. This way, Logan said, steering left. You don't live the other direction? I'll walk you to the subway first. You don't have to. A gust of wind flipped the umbrella inside out. Logan held it tight, trying to fix it. Avery tried to help, their hands tangled around the handle. Wait, I'll pull this side, she said. No, you'll tear it. Let me. Another gust. The umbrella spun like a propeller. They both gave up at the same time, laughing, already soaked. So much for a 2-year warranty, Avery said, wiping water from her face. Logan looked at the wrecked umbrella, then at her, and laughed. For real. Loud. Genuine. The company paid $80 for this. $80. Avery nearly shouted. For an umbrella? It was Italian. Well, now it's Italian scrap, he laughed again. And something in Avery's chest tightened, because Logan Whitmore laughing, drenched looking human instead of a flawless CEO. That was dangerous. Very dangerous. Come on, he said, tossing the ruined umbrella into the nearest trash bin. There. He pointed toward a narrow awning a few yards ahead. They ran. Avery slipped in a puddle, and Logan grabbed her arm. They made it under the awning, breathless, soaked, laughing like teenagers. My hair, Avery said, trying to fix her undone bun. I look like I got caught in a hurricane. It's, Logan began, looking at her. He stopped. His eyes moved over the wet hair falling onto her shoulders, the rain droplets on her cheek, the blouse clinging to her skin. Different, he finished, his voice lower. Different like a walking disaster? Different like beautiful. The world stopped. The rain kept falling. Cars went by. Chicago existed around them. But under that small awning, only they existed. Logan, she whispered. Without thinking, he took a step. Small, deliberate. Now they were inches apart. Avery, he said, and her name sounded different, dangerous, inevitable. We shouldn't. She began. I know, he interrupted. You're my boss. I know, this is a bad idea. Terrible. But neither of them moved. Logan lifted his hand, slowly, wiped a raindrop from her cheek with his thumb. The touch lasted half a second. It burned completely. His eyes dropped to her lips. He tilted his head, a few millimeters. Avery stopped breathing. I shouldn't, Logan whispered, his voice rough. No, she whispered back. But I want to. So do I. He leaned closer, close enough for her to feel his breath. An inch. Half. And then Logan pulled back, fast, like he'd been shocked. He ran a hand through his wet hair, turning away. I'm sorry, he said, his voice tight. I shouldn't have. That was inappropriate. Avery's chest ached in a way that had nothing to do with the rain. Logan? You work for me, he said, still facing away. We can't cross that line. It wouldn't be fair to you. And what if I want to cross it? He turned. His eyes met hers. There was pain there, and desire and control fighting both. It doesn't change the fact that it would be wrong, he said quietly. You deserve more than this. This what? Complication, risk, a boss who can't keep professional distance. The rain was slowing, the moment slipping away. I'll call a car for you, Logan said, pulling out his phone. I can take the subway. Avery, please, let me do this. The way he asked made her give in. Okay. 3 minutes later, the car arrived. Logan opened the door for her. Good night, Miss Collins. Back to the last name. Back to distance. Good night, Mr. Whitmore. Avery got in. The door closed. The car pulled away. She looked out the back window. Logan was still there, standing in the rain, soaked, watching the car drive off. And Avery realized that the ache in his chest probably matched hers, because he had pulled away. Not because he didn't want to, but because he wanted too much, and somehow that was worse. The weekend passed in slow motion. Avery checked her phone 47 times. Not that she was expecting a message from him. Not that she replayed the almost kiss every time she closed her eyes. Lie. She was doing exactly that. Sunday night, a notification popped up. Her heart jumped. Pizza ad. Pathetic, she muttered. Completely pathetic, Collins. What she didn't know was that across the city, Logan was staring at his phone with his finger hovering over her name. About Friday. He typed, deleted. Hope you got home safely. He typed, deleted. Then he put the phone in the drawer and didn't touch it again. Monday, 8:30 a.m. The email came marked urgent. National Investment Conference, New York, Wednesday to Friday. Flights and hotel confirmed. 3 days. In New York. With Logan. Fantastic, Avery whispered to the screen. Wednesday, O'Hare Airport, 6:40 a.m. Logan was already at the gate when Avery arrived. Perfect suit, neutral expression, as if Friday night had never happened. Good morning, Miss Collins. Good morning, Mr. Whitmore. Professional, distant, safe. The flight was called. Logan joined the first-class line. Avery headed for business class. She walked past him in the plane aisle. He was already settled in his wide seat, laptop open, coffee in hand. See you in New York, he said without looking up. Yes, sir. Avery continued to her seat, 15 rows back. 3-hour flight. 3 hours pretending to read reports while thinking about that rain. That almost kiss, that voice saying, but I want to. When the plane landed, Logan had already disembarked. She found him in the terminal picking up their luggage. Car's waiting, he said. Hotel's 20 minutes away. They rode in silence. Manhattan passed by outside. Towering buildings, rushing people, a world completely different from Chicago. Neither of them mentioned Friday. Hotel in Manhattan, 12th floor. Avery pulled her suitcase down the hall, searching for room 1208. Found it. Opened the door. Beautiful room, big bed, city view, and a sleek black box on the center of the bed. She frowned, walked closer, cautious as if it might explode. Silver ribbon, envelope on top, thick paper. She opened it. Handwritten note, firm and elegant handwriting. Dress code for Thursday's cocktail is formal. Took the liberty of arranging something to simplify travel logistics. LW. Avery opened the box and stopped breathing. A black dress, luxurious fabric that slid between her fingers like water. Elegant cut, fitted in the right places, flowing in others. Subtle neckline, sophisticated, delicate straps, perfect. She looked at the dress, at the note, back at the dress. He bought me a dress, she whispered. The billionaire CEO bought me a dress. To simplify logistics, right? Totally normal. Bosses do that all the time, nothing weird here. She held the dress against her body, looking in the mirror. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for her. How does he even know my size? She murmured, then remembered the first day, the clothes Miss Patterson had arranged. Oh, of course, he knows everything. A knock came from the connecting door. Avery dropped the dress on the bed out of reflex, her heart racing. Miss Collins? Logan's muffled voice. She opened the door. He stood on the other side, tie loosened, expression caught between discomfort and forced neutrality. Apparently there was a mix-up with the reservations, he said, nodding toward the connecting door. Apparently. I can ask to change it. No need. We're adults. Professionals. We can handle a door. A door, he repeated. That stays closed. Obviously. The whole time. Of course. Awkward silence. His eyes dropped to the bed, to the dress laid out on the white cover. You got it, he said. It wasn't a question. I did, Avery replied. Thank you. You didn't have to. The dress code's strict. I didn't want you to worry about it on top of everything else. Very professional of you. That's what I am. Their eyes met. 3 seconds. 4. Business dinner at 8, Logan said, looking away first. Hotel lobby. I'll be there. He nodded, closed the door. Avery stared at the wood. Professional, she repeated, picking up the dress. He's professional. The dress is professional. Everything is professional. Nothing to do with the fact that we almost kissed in the rain. Nothing at all. Thursday, 7:40 p.m. Avery looked at the bathroom mirror for the 10th time. The black dress fit like a dream. Fitted waist, fabric flowing smoothly over her hips. Elegant without being overdone. Sophisticated without trying too hard. She had done her best with her hair. A low bun, soft strands framing her face, light makeup, small earrings she'd brought from Chicago. Okay, Collins, she told her reflection. You look like someone who belongs at an investor cocktail party. Fake it till you make it. She headed down to the lobby. Logan was waiting near the hotel bar, talking to 2 men in suits. He turned when she approached, and froze. His eyes swept over the dress, slowly, from top to bottom, then back to her face. Something flickered in his expression, surprise, admiration, before disappearing behind his professional mask. Miss Collins, he said, his voice slightly rougher. Ready? Ready. The dress looks appropriate. Appropriate, she repeated. Thanks, I think. The corner of his mouth almost curved. Let's go. Post-conference cocktail. Hotel ballroom. Avery hadn't planned to drink, but the champagne was free, the nerves were real, and Logan was across the room looking like a business magazine cover while she tried not to stare. The problem was the dress. Every time she moved, she felt the fabric slide against her skin. Fabric he had chosen. A dress he had bought. For her. 3 glasses of champagne became 5. 5 became... She lost count. You okay? Logan appeared beside her. Voice low. Perfectly, Avery replied, smiling too much. This champagne is fantastic. Did you know the bubbles rise at a speed of... You're drunk. Unhappy. There's a difference. What difference? If I were drunk, I'd be saying things I shouldn't, like how good you look in a blue tie, or how I can't stop thinking about that rain, or how I wish you hadn't pulled away, or how I'm wearing a dress you picked out and it's driving me completely crazy. She paused. Wait, did I say that out loud? Logan closed his eyes for a second. You did. Oh, then maybe I am drunk. Come on, he said, gently taking her elbow. I'm taking you to your room. That sounds inappropriate. Avery. Sorry, filter off, champagne effect. They crossed the lobby. People watched. Logan didn't seem to care. They entered the elevator, rode up in silence. Avery leaned against him without realizing it, her shoulder against his arm. You smell good, she murmured. You always smell good. It's annoying. Annoying? Yes. Makes it hard to stay professional, especially when I'm wearing a dress you bought, which is gorgeous, by the way. Really gorgeous. You have good taste. Or someone has good taste for you. Who picked it? I did, Logan said quietly. Avery looked up at him. You? Me. By yourself? By myself. She didn't know what to say. The elevator opened. They walked down the hall. Avery stopped at her door, digging through her purse. T, she muttered, rummaging. Found it. Tried to swipe it. Missed. Tried again. Missed. Logan took the card from her hand, opened the door. There. Avery stepped inside, turned around. He was still standing in the doorway, didn't come in. The black dress shimmered under the soft room light, the dress he had chosen. Thank you, she said, a little more sober now, for bringing me back, and for not taking advantage. Taking advantage? Of the situation, of me saying too much. You could have. I would never, Logan interrupted, his voice firm. Never. Something in his tone made her heart tighten. I know, she whispered. That's what makes it so hard. What is? Not liking you. Silence. 5 long seconds. Logan took a step back, his eyes dropped to the dress once more. Drink some water. Take something for your headache. Get some rest. Logan. Good night, Avery. He used her first name, like in the rain, like a hidden confession. Avery felt her chest ache. Good night, Logan. He nodded, turned, walked to his own door. Stopped with his hand on the handle, looked back. Their eyes met across the empty hallway. 10 yards of carpet, a lifetime of tension. The dress, he said quietly, it looks perfect on you. And he went inside before she could answer. Avery stood there, her heart pounding wildly. Fantastic, Collins, she muttered, closing her own door. Just fantastic. She leaned against the wall, still in the dress he had chosen. Alone, for her. On the other side of the wall, Logan was leaning against the connecting door. Eyes closed, breathing heavy, hands clenched into fists because he had heard everything, and he was using every ounce of control not to open that door and show her just how perfect the dress really looked. The flight back to Chicago felt different. Avery arrived at the airport expecting to board business class like on the way there, but when she handed over her ticket, the agent smiled. "First class, Miss Collins. Seat 2B. "There must be a mistake," my ticket was. "It was changed this morning by Mr. Whitmore." Avery felt her face heat up. She found Logan already seated in 2A, laptop closed, staring out the window. "Good morning," she said, taking her seat beside him. "Good morning." Silence. Avery fastened her seatbelt, staring at her hands. "About last night," she began softly. "What I said at the cocktail party, I was the champagne." "Avery?" She stopped. Logan turned his head, looking directly at her. "You don't need to apologize. But I said things that—" "I know what you said." The air between them thickened. "And?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Logan was silent for 3 seconds. "Nothing changes," he said finally. "We're professionals." The word hurt more than it should have. "Right," Avery replied. "Professionals." He turned back to the window. 3 hours of flight, side by side, in silence. But at least this time they were in the same place. 2 weeks later, Avery got home after a long day at the office, climbed the stairs of her old building, digging for her keys, and froze. A black box sat against her apartment door, bigger than the one from New York. Gold ribbon this time. Envelope on top. Her heart jumped. "No," she whispered. "He didn't do this again." She opened the door, dragged the box inside, and sat on the couch. Hands shaking, she opened the envelope. Handwritten note. Same steady, elegant handwriting. "Annual gala is Friday. Black tie dress code. This one matches your eyes. L, not LW like in New York, just L. More personal, more intimate. Matches your eyes." Avery opened the box and forgot how to breathe. A navy blue gown, fabric that shimmered like the night sky, delicate gold accents along the neckline and waist, a cut that looked tailor-made for her. Under the dress, a smaller box. She opened it. Gold sandals, medium heel, elegant without being too much. "He thought of everything," she murmured, running her fingers over the fabric. "Dress, shoes, everything." She held the dress against her body, looking at herself in the cracked apartment mirror. It was the most beautiful dress she had ever seen. "Matches your eyes." "This isn't professional anymore," she said to her reflection. "This is something else." Friday, Whitmore Enterprises annual gala. Avery looked at herself in the mirror for the 10th time. The navy dress flowed like a dream. The gold details caught the light beautifully. The sandals were surprisingly comfortable. She had managed an elegant updo after watching tutorials online for 2 hours. Careful makeup, small crystal earrings. "Okay, Collins," she told the reflection. "You look like someone who belongs at a gala, or at least someone pretending really well." The ballroom was breathtaking. Giant crystal chandeliers, tables adorned with white flowers. Avery walked in, trying not to trip in the new sandals, and saw Camille Hart immediately. Tight red dress, perfect hair, hanging on Logan's arm like a luxury accessory. Avery grabbed a glass of sparkling water, no champagne this time, and positioned herself in a quiet corner. She watched as Logan was led by Camille from group to group, his eyes occasionally scanning the room. Then his eyes found hers, and he froze. Stopped talking, stopped moving, just stopped. His gaze traveled down the navy dress, the gold accents, the sandals, then back up again. Slowly. Camille said something. Logan didn't answer. An hour passed. Speeches, toasts. Avery was about to leave when a voice came from behind her. "Miss Collins," she turned. Logan was there, alone. His eyes swept over the dress once more. "I was right," he said quietly. "About what?" "It matches your eyes." "Logan, dance with me? Here, in front of everyone? It's a gala. People dance. But Camille is watching." "Avery," he said, his voice low. "Dance with me." She took his hand. Logan led her to the center of the ballroom. One hand on her waist, the other holding hers. They began to move. "I don't know how to dance," she admitted. "You're doing fine. I'm stepping on your shoes. They're sturdy." She stumbled. He held her tighter. "Relax," Logan said near her ear. "Just follow me." His breath was warm against her skin, his hand steady on her waist. "People are watching," she whispered. "Let them. They'll talk. Let them talk." She looked up. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I wanted to. All night I wanted to." The dress, the sandals, New York, all of it. All of it what? It's not professional anymore, is it? His eyes darkened. No, he admitted, it's not. Avery stumbled again. He pulled her closer. Now they were pressed together. You look beautiful tonight, he whispered. Not just tonight. Always. You need to stop saying things like that. Why? Because I might start believing them. Maybe you should. The music ended, but they didn't let go. Not right away. Logan. The voice cut through the moment. Camille. Sharp smile, cold eyes. The investors from Texas want to speak with you. It's urgent. Logan slowly released Avery's hand. Of course. Excuse me, Miss Collins. And he walked away. Camille didn't. She stayed, looking Avery up and down. The dress, the sandals, the gold details. Lovely dress, dear, she said, her voice sweet as poison. Must have cost, what, $3,000–$4,000? Avery didn't answer. Curious, Camille went on, tilting her head. Considering an assistant's salary. The silence grew heavy. Camille stepped closer, lowering her voice. Oh, wait, you didn't buy it, did you? Her smile widened. Interesting how certain promotions work in this company. Avery felt her face burn. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't, dear, Camille said, straightening her red dress. I'm just pointing out that some people get things through merit, and others through different kinds of talent. The meaning was clear. Avery clenched her fists. I was hired for my competence. I'm sure you were, Camille said, her tone saying the opposite. The dress is just coincidence, like the one from New York, and the first-class tickets, all coincidence. She leaned closer, whispering in Avery's ear. Enjoy it while it lasts, dear. Men like Logan get tired of new toys quickly. And she walked away, red heels hitting the floor like a verdict. Avery stood there, heart pounding, the words echoing. Toy. Promotion, other talents. She looked down at the navy dress, the gold details, the sandals he had chosen. Suddenly, everything felt different. Not special. Wrong. She left the ballroom before the tears fell, and she didn't see Logan return 5 minutes later, eyes scanning every corner. Didn't see the confusion on his face when he didn't find her. Didn't see him asking 3 people where she had gone. All she saw was her reflection in the bathroom mirror. A girl in an expensive dress that wasn't hers, pretending to be someone she'd never be. And for the first time since joining Whitmore, Avery wondered if Camille was right. Maybe she really was just a toy with an expiration date. Monday, 9:15 a.m. Avery was still trying to forget Camille's words from the gala when the email arrived. Miss Collins, please report to HR immediately. Room 1505. Subject, professional conduct. Her stomach dropped. Professional conduct. She knew exactly what that meant. She looked toward Logan's glass office door. He was on a video call, back to her, gesturing as he spoke. She couldn't interrupt him. Not for this. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was routine. Lie. She knew it wasn't. Okay, Collins, she muttered to herself in the elevator going down to the 15th floor. You'll go in there, explain that you didn't do anything wrong, and present your defense calmly and clearly. The doors opened. She kept mumbling as she walked down the hallway. Your Honor. Ma'am from HR. I declare total innocence. The dress was an unsolicited gift. The dance was a public invitation at a social event. The first-class flight was a corporate courtesy I didn't even request. None of this qualifies as. She stopped in front of room 1505. Qualifies as what again? Deep breath. Knocked. Come in. The room was small. Meeting table. 3 chairs. 2 were already occupied. Margaret Chen, HR director, sat at the head of the table, folder open, expression serious. Camille Hart sat to her right, wearing a look of fake concern that didn't hide the satisfaction in her eyes. Avery's heart sank. Have a seat, Miss Collins, Margaret said. Avery sat, her hands cold in her lap. We've been informed, Margaret began, of a possible inappropriate situation between you and Mr. Whitmore. Situation? Avery repeated, her voice trembling. Personal involvement, Margaret clarified. That may be influencing professional decisions, benefits, gifts, preferential treatment. That's not true. We have detailed reports, Camille interrupted, crossing her legs elegantly. Expensive clothes, first-class flights, intimate behavior at the gala. Intimate behavior? Avery felt her face burn. It was a dance at a public event. A dance where he whispered in your ear, Camille said, smiling. While you wore a dress you clearly didn't buy on an assistant's salary. Miss Hart, Margaret interjected, let's stay focused on the facts. These are the facts, Camille continued, ignoring her. She joined this company, and within weeks she was getting special treatment. Trips, clothes, exclusive attention from the CEO, while employees with years here are overlooked. I didn't ask for any of that, Avery said, her voice shaking. Of course you didn't, Camille replied, dripping with sarcasm. You just accepted it. The black dress in New York, the blue dress in Chicago, the first-class tickets, the intimate dances. All that just fell from the sky, didn't it? Avery swallowed hard. Mr. Whitmore offered, for corporate events, because of the dress code. Dress code, Camille repeated with a low laugh. Sweetheart, dress code doesn't require the CEO to personally choose a dress that matches your eyes. Yes, I know about the note. Avery's blood ran cold. How did you? Doesn't matter how, Camille cut her off. What matters is that the entire company is talking. The assistant who seduced the boss to get ahead. The girl who showed up barefoot and now wears $4,000 gowns. I didn't seduce anyone. Avery said louder than she meant to. Miss Collins, Margaret warned. Sorry, Avery whispered, taking a breath. But it's not true. None of it. Then explain, Camille said, leaning forward. Why you? Why would a brand new assistant with no experience get treatment no one else here ever has? Avery opened her mouth, closed it. She didn't have an answer, because she didn't know either. Exactly, Camille said, satisfied. You don't know. Or you know and won't admit it. Miss Hart, Margaret said firmly, this is an investigation, not a courtroom. Of course, Camille replied, leaning back. I'm just presenting facts. What HR decides to do with them is another matter. Margaret turned to Avery. Miss Collins, do you have anything to add in your defense? Avery looked down at her hands. They were trembling. The navy blue dress she had loved so much now felt like evidence. The dance that had made her heart race now felt like a terrible mistake. I didn't do anything wrong, she said quietly. I just did my job. With extra benefits, Camille added. Miss Hart, please, Margaret said. Camille raised her hands in mock surrender. I'm just making sure the truth comes out, for the company's sake. The silence in the room grew heavy. Miss Collins, Margaret said finally, we'll investigate these claims. For now you may return to work, but I recommend professional distance until everything is clarified. Professional distance, as if Avery were guilty of something. Understood, she whispered. She stood and walked to the door. Miss Collins, Camille called. Avery stopped, not turning around. The next time you accept an expensive gift from a man invested in this company, Camille said softly, think twice before saying yes. It might cost more than you realize. Avery didn't answer. She left, closed the door, and only then realized she was crying. Silent tears streamed down her face as she walked down the 15th floor hallway. Her vision blurred, her chest tight. She pressed the elevator button with shaking fingers. The doors opened, and Logan was inside. He looked up from his phone, saw her, saw the tears. His face changed instantly. Concern, confusion, something deeper. Avery, he said, taking a step toward her. What happened? Are you? She stepped into the elevator, passing by him without looking. Press the lobby button. Avery, Logan said again, his voice now urgent. Look at me. What happened? Nothing, she lied, her voice breaking. You're crying? That's not nothing. The doors began to close. Logan placed his hand between them. Avery, please. She finally looked at him. Red eyes, tear-streaked face, smudged mascara. Let me go, she whispered. Please, just let me go. Something broke in his expression. He moved his hand away. The doors closed, and Avery rode down alone, leaving Logan standing in the 15th floor hallway, not knowing what had happened, but knowing, with absolute certainty, that someone had hurt her, and that he wouldn't let it stay that way. Tuesday, 8:30 a.m. Logan stepped onto the 23rd floor and stopped. Avery's desk was empty, computer off, chair neatly pushed in, no sign of her. Strange. She always arrived before he did. He walked into his office, leaving the door open, turned on his computer, checked emails. No message from Avery. At 9 o'clock, he glanced at her desk again. Empty. At 9:30, he called her cell. Voicemail. At 10, he tried again. Voicemail. Miss Patterson, he called through the intercom. Yes, Mr. Whitmore? Did Miss Collins call to say she wouldn't be in? Pause. No, sir. No communication. Logan hung up, stared through the glass at her empty desk. The image of her crying in the elevator Monday wouldn't leave his head. The tears. Her breaking voice, let me go. What had happened? At 11, he tried to focus on a conference call with Japanese investors. Failed. At noon, he canceled a business lunch. At 2, he called her cell for the 5th time. Voicemail. "Avery, it's me," he said after the beep, his voice more vulnerable than he intended. "I just need to know you're okay. Call me, please." She didn't call. At 6 that evening, Logan was still in his office, staring at her empty desk, unable to leave. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. And for the first time in years, Logan Whitmore didn't know what to do. Wednesday, 8:45 a.m. The desk was still empty. Logan went straight to HR. Margaret Chen looked up when he walked in without knocking. "Mr. Whitmore, can I help you?" "Miss Collins, 2 days without showing up, no notice. What's going on?" Margaret hesitated. "Sir, perhaps you should sit." "Margaret." The firmness in his voice left no room for delay. She sighed and opened a folder. "Miss Collins sent a resignation letter last night, by email, effective immediately." The air left his lungs. "Resignation," he repeated slowly. "Yes, sir, she cited personal reasons." "What personal reasons?" She didn't specify. Logan stared at the folder, then at Margaret, then back at the folder. "What happened Monday?" he asked, his voice dangerously calm. "When she left the 15th floor in tears?" Margaret went pale. "Sir? What happened?" Silence. "There was a meeting?" Margaret admitted finally. "About professional conduct." Miss Hart brought forward allegations. "What kind of allegations?" "About an inappropriate relationship between Miss Collins and you." Logan's jaw tightened. "And you questioned her, alone, without informing me." "Miss Hart insisted your presence would compromise." "Miss Hart," Logan cut in, his voice sharp, "has no authority to decide anything in this company." He stepped closer to the desk. "Margaret, let me be perfectly clear. I'm the CEO of this company. Every decision, every hire, every policy goes through me. And what happened in that room Monday should never have happened." "Sir, we followed protocol." "Protocol," Logan interrupted, "does not include allowing an employee to be humiliated based on gossip from a colleague with a personal agenda. Protocol does not include questioning someone without solid evidence. Protocol does not include destroying the reputation of an innocent person." The silence in the room was thick. "If this ever happens again," he went on, "to anyone in this company, I'll hold HR personally accountable. Are we clear?" "Yes, sir," Margaret whispered. "Good. Now, Miss Hart, I want her resignation letter on my desk by the end of the day." Margaret's eyes widened. "Sir, workplace harassment, defamation, unethical conduct, targeting a coworker," Logan listed. "If she refuses, the legal department will be more than happy to review the anonymous email she sent, and believe me, we've traced every one of them." Margaret swallowed hard. "It will be done, sir." And Logan left. Wednesday, 6:40 p.m. Avery was on the couch, eating ice cream straight from the carton and watching a cooking show without really watching when the doorbell rang. She froze. No one ever rang her doorbell. The building was old. The neighbors were ghosts. It rang again. "Coming?" she called, dropping the ice cream and stumbling toward the door. She stopped halfway there. Looked at herself. Stained sweatshirt, messy hair, mismatched socks. "Okay, Avery," she muttered, "it's probably the neighbor asking for salt, or a lost delivery guy. Anything but." She opened the door. Logan Whitmore stood in the narrow, dimly lit hallway of the old building. Impeccable suit, hair slightly tousled by the wind, an expression she had never seen before, vulnerable, worried, determined. "How did you?" she began. "Your address is in the employee file," he said. "Former employee, apparently." Avery swallowed hard. "Logan, may I come in?" She glanced behind her. Tiny apartment, old couch, melted ice cream on the coffee table. "It's not exactly what you're used to," she murmured. "I'm not here for the apartment." She opened the door wider. Logan stepped inside, and the tiny space seemed to shrink with him in it. He looked around, not with judgment, but with warmth. "So this is where you live," he said quietly. "It is. It's cozy. It's small." I said cozy. An awkward silence filled the air. "Why are you here?" Avery asked, crossing her arms. "Because you quit." And I don't accept it." Avery let out a humorless laugh. "You don't accept it? Logan, I sent a formal resignation, by email." "I don't accept it," he repeated, taking a step closer. "Not like this. Not because of Camille. You found out." "I did, and Camille doesn't work at the company anymore." Avery's eyes widened. "What?" "I asked for her resignation today. Workplace harassment, defamation, unethical conduct." "Logan, you didn't have to." "I did," he interrupted. And I'm furious, not at you, at them, for humiliating you, for accusing you of things you didn't do, and you were alone. It wasn't your responsibility. It was, Logan said, taking another step. Now he was close, too close. Because I'm the reason you were in that position. The dresses, the flights, the dance. That was me. Why did you do all that? Avery whispered. Logan stayed silent for 3 seconds. Then he said, because I fell in love with you. The world stopped. What? Avery's voice trembled. I fell in love with you, he repeated. Since the first day. You walked into that elevator barefoot, coffee on your shirt, talking to yourself about treacherous sandals, and I haven't stopped thinking about you since. Avery felt her eyes fill with tears. Logan, you showed up barefoot and turned my world upside down, he went on. I've always been in control of everything, but I couldn't control what I feel for you. The dresses were an excuse to see you smile. The flights were an excuse to be near you. The dance was because I couldn't pretend anymore. I'm not enough for you, Avery said, her voice breaking. Look where I live. Look at me. You're a billionaire. I'm just... You're everything, Logan interrupted. You're honest, you're brave, you're funny even when you're nervous, you talk to yourself, you name objects, and you face escalators and arrogant CEOs with the same courage. He held her face gently in his hands. You're the most real person I've ever met, and I'm tired of pretending I don't want you. Logan, she whispered. If you want to leave, he said softly, then go. But go because you want to. Not because someone pressured you. Not because you're ashamed, not because you think you're not enough, because you are. You always were. Avery looked at him, into his gray eyes, at the hands holding her face. I don't know what to say, she admitted. Then don't say anything, and he kissed her. Lips on lips, gentle at first, then deeper, weeks of tension dissolving in a heartbeat. Avery gripped his shirt, pulling him closer. He deepened the kiss, one hand sliding to her waist, the other tangled in her messy hair. This time there was no interruption, no rain, no intercom, no Camille, just them, in that tiny apartment, finally giving in. When they pulled apart, breathless, foreheads touching, Logan smiled. A real smile, complete, rare. So, he said softly, are you going to withdraw your resignation? Avery laughed, still holding onto his shirt. Is that a bribe, Mr. Whitmore? It's a request, Miss Collins, she pretended to think. I'll consider it. He kissed her again and again. The ice cream melted completely on the coffee table. Neither of them cared. Thursday, 8:15 a.m. Avery stepped onto the 23rd floor for the first time in 3 days. Hands sweating, heart racing, a smile she couldn't hide. Her desk was still there. Computer, chair, little gold nameplate. Avery Collins, executive assistant. She stopped, staring at her name. Are you planning to stand there all day? That deep voice came from the office doorway. Logan was leaning against the frame, arms crossed, the corner of his mouth curved. Just processing, Avery said. I thought I'd never see this desk again. And I thought I'd have to hire another assistant, Logan replied. You know how hard it is to find someone who can fight escalators and still show up on time? Avery laughed. Very hard, I imagine. He walked closer, stopped near her, too near to be professional. Welcome back, Miss Collins. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. His eyes gleamed. Coffee at 9, meeting at 10. Lunch with me at noon. Lunch with you? Business meeting, he said seriously, to discuss strategies. Strategies, extremely important ones. Avery bit her lip, trying not to laugh. Understood, sir. Logan nodded, turned, and started back toward his office. At the door, he looked over his shoulder. And Avery? Yes? It's good to have you back. He closed the door before she could answer. Avery sat down, her heart still racing. Okay, Collins, she murmured to herself. Back to work, professional, focus. The intercom buzzed. Miss Collins, forgot to mention, Miss Hart no longer works here, in case anyone asks. Avery smiled. Noted, sir. And for the first time in weeks, everything felt exactly as it should. The next 6 months were full of discoveries. At the office, they kept things professional. She was Miss Collins, he was Mr. Whitmore. But everyone knew. Glances that lingered a few seconds too long, lunches together that no one questioned. Smiles exchanged through the glass office wall. Outside Whitmore Enterprises, they built something real. Dinners at restaurants around the city. Weekends at her apartment, which Logan still insisted on calling cozy. Walks exploring Chicago together. She learned he hated mayonnaise and loved old movies. He learned she talked in her sleep and cried at grocery store commercials. Slowly, two completely different worlds began to merge into one. And when 6 months passed, Logan Whitmore knew exactly what he had to do. Friday, 6:30 p.m. Avery was finishing a report when the email arrived. Meeting on the rooftop, 7 p.m., formal dress code. Don't be late. L. She frowned. A meeting on the rooftop? At 7? On a Friday? Before she could reply, Miss Patterson appeared beside her desk with a box in her hands. Different from the others. Silver ribbon this time. Mr. Whitmore asked me to bring this to you, she said with her usual half-smile. Executive dressing room. You know the way. Avery looked at the box. Another dress? You'll understand, Miss Patterson replied. Go on, dear. You've got 20 minutes. In the dressing room, Avery opened the box and forgot how to breathe. A white dress, off-white really, soft fabric that shimmered gently under the light, elegant cut, romantic, unlike any he'd ever given her before. And a note, white suits our future, L. Her heart skipped a beat. White. Future. Our. No, she whispered, her hands trembling. He wouldn't. She reread the note. White suits our future. He would, she said to the mirror, tears already filling her eyes. She changed with shaking hands, fixed her hair, redid her makeup 3 times because her hands wouldn't stop trembling. Looked in the mirror. The dress fit perfectly, as if it had been made just for her, for this moment. Okay, Avery, she murmured. Breathe. It could be something else. It could just be a romantic dinner. It could be... She stopped. Who was she kidding? She went up to the rooftop, her heart pounding so hard she was sure the whole building could hear it. She opened the door and stopped breathing for the second time that night. The rooftop was transformed, candles everywhere, hundreds of them, forming a path to the center where a small table waited, set with champagne and white flowers. Chicago sparkled in the background, the city lights like silent witnesses, and at the center of it all, Logan, black suit, white tie, matching her dress, an expression she'd never seen before, nervous, vulnerable, hopeful. Logan, she whispered. Business meeting, he said, his voice unsteady. Very important topic. Avery walked toward him, her legs trembling. What topic? Logan took her hand. His fingers were shaking as much as hers. Avery Collins, he began. 6 months ago you stepped into an elevator barefoot, coffee on your shirt, explaining that the escalator had been cruel to you. She laughed, tears already falling. You're never going to let me forget that, are you? Never, he said, smiling, because that was the day my life changed. He released her hand and knelt. Avery covered her mouth with both hands. I spent years building an empire, Logan continued, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. I thought success meant control, that perfection meant safety, that I didn't need anyone. He opened the box. A diamond ring, simple, elegant, perfect. Then you showed up, barefoot, chaotic, completely off script, and I realized everything I'd built meant nothing without someone to share it with. Logan, you brought life into my too perfect world, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You made me laugh, made me feel, made me want to be better. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just me. He took her hand again. Avery Collins, will you turn my world upside down for the rest of our lives? She laughed and cried at the same time, tried to answer, tripped over her own sandal. Logan caught her before she could fall, still kneeling, laughing. Is that a yes? Yes, she said, her voice trembling. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, stood, pulled her close, and kissed her. Under the lights of Chicago, with candles glowing all around, with the entire world as their witness. When they finally pulled apart, foreheads touching, Avery looked down at the ring. The note, she whispered. You already knew. I did. White suits our future. It does, Logan said, smiling. If you want it to. I do. She said without hesitation. I want everything. He cupped her face in his hands. Remember what I told you at your apartment? That you were always enough? I remember. I was wrong. Wrong? You're not enough, he said, his eyes shining. You're more. So much more than I'll ever deserve. Avery laughed, tears falling. You're ridiculous. I'm yours. Yes, she said softly. Yes, you are. Later, sitting on the edge of the rooftop, champagne in hand, the city at their feet, Avery rested her head on his shoulder. On the first day, when everything went wrong, I thought my life was over, she said. Was it? No, Avery said, looking at the ring. It had just begun. Logan kissed the top of her head. I knew it that day, in the elevator. I looked at you and thought, this woman is going to change everything. Liar. Truth. She lifted her head. "And I thought you were just another arrogant CEO. And now? Now I know you're an arrogant CEO I love." Logan laughed out loud. "Fair enough." A comfortable silence. "Logan?" "Yes?" "Thank you for seeing me that day." He took her hand, the one with the ring. "You were impossible to miss, because I was a mess, because you were real." Avery felt her chest tighten with love. "I love you." "I love you too, Avery Collins, soon to be Avery Whitmore." And under the lights of Chicago, with the whole city as their witness, they sealed their promise with another kiss. Because the girl who had arrived barefoot on her first day of work had found much more than a job. She had found a home. And it had a name. Logan Whitmore. The end. What did you think of this love story? Tell us in the comments, what was your favorite scene? Leave your thoughts below. On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate this story? And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to hear more heartwarming stories like this one. See you next time.